to All the F Words,
a podcast where two writer friends, nearly 30 years apart, explore everything we give an F about. I'm Gabby Moskowitz.
And I'm Joanne Green. On each episode of All the F Words, we'll focus on a theme, starting with the letter F. Things like fiction, fellowship, futility, and fudge.
We'll share stories from our lives and our distinct generational perspectives and look to the experts for insights and ideas.
Today we're going to talk about fortitude, remaining strong in the face of adversity.
Feels like an awfully relevant topic these days.
It sure is.
I think I want to start this episode by talking about some times that we have experienced or have had to summon fortitude. You want to tell me? I know that, having read some early drafts of your forthcoming memoir by accident, that's the title. That's not how I read it.
Thank you.
I know that you have had to summon your share of fortitude in your life, and I wondered if you might share some times that has come up for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all do, and the question is, with what do we meet the challenges? So, I mean, I can think of opportunities to have tried to summon fortitude in my childhood, in my 20s, in my 30s, in my 40s, in my 50s, and it's been different every time. So really quickly, in an earlier episode, I shared that I had had anorexia as a teenager. And so that was requiring a lot of me. I was alone. I was 1,000 miles away from home as a student, 17 years old at Northwestern, and I needed to really on my own find the right psychologist to help me through and still go to school and have a part-time job. And, I was living with a group of people in sort of a commune situation. So it was a lot. And there was definitely some inner strength that came into play. I'm thinking of the time when I was 23 and I was mugged on the front steps of my apartment at 2 a.m. when I was alone.
Oh my God.
And that's a story that I think it got taken out of my book. It was in there, but it'll appear somewhere somehow because it's an incredible story.
You've had a lot of experiences worth writing a memoir about when you have to take out the mugging story because you've already got enough.
Well, literally because my developmental editor said, we don't want people to get trauma fatigue from all the things that happened to you. It's like, we can't have one more horrible thing happen to you. But it did.
Oh, my God.
So I would say the vying for top place in hardest thing ever was losing my mother and my sister in a 5-month period and having to function, because that's the thing. When stuff happens, particularly when you're a parent and particularly when you have a responsible job out in the real world, you don't get to just stop and deal with whatever the big challenge is. You have to deal with it and be functioning at somewhere close to peak capacity at the same time. So those are all minor footnotes if they appear at all in the memoir. But yeah, and then the memoir is about the big ones. So, What about you?
Well, I mean, in many ways, I'm so privileged. And when I think about the times I feel like I've had to summon fortitude, it's very easy for me to sort of dismiss them as, things that don't really matter in the grand scheme of things. But I think the most recent big moment of fortitude was, 14 months ago when I gave birth to my second daughter. Everything was fine. I'd had some anesthesia, but it was not. I was too far along. I was too dilated. It was 9 centimeters or something, and it had the most excruciating drive. 45-minute drive from my house in Novato to the hospital in Santa Rosa because Kaiser, for some reason, doesn't think women in Marin County want to give birth in Marin County, but that's a story for another day. And I was overcome with this feeling of, even though I had done it before, this feeling of I can't do this. And I had to just suspend my disbelief. And I remember the nurse practitioner who was doing the delivery. I was so exhausted because I had been up in labor for the previous 24 hours, and I was in so much pain, but I was also felt like my brain was shutting down. And she gripped me by the bare thighs and she said, "Gabby, take a deep breath and push out your baby." And I just listened to her and did it. And I felt like, it's talking about childbirth is one of those things. It's like childbirth, death of loved ones. They're things that life cycle stuff that feels like the most enormous moments in our lives, but they are so ubiquitous. And so, it's like, it feels simultaneously so huge and so important. And it's the kind of story where there are lots of other women who have given birth. And so it's not that interesting in contrast to that. And there was nothing, it was a very normal birth experience, but I felt superhuman.
And you were, I am here to say. So I did this a very, very long time ago. I had a perfectly normal childbirth with my first son. And my sister was there with me along with my husband. And second time around, once again, she was in the room. And when I was crowning and feeling exactly as you just described, that I don't think I can do this, I looked at her and in all seriousness, I said, "I thought you loved me. If you loved me, you would never have let me do this again." And that's what I felt at that moment, You betrayed me by letting me do this again because I don't think I'm going to survive. And this was a completely normal birth with no complications. Okay, a little Pitocin maybe made the contractions harder, but other than that, yeah. And you just can't believe it. But here's the thing about Fortitude. We summon it from somewhere. It comes from somewhere. And I think many of us, if not most of us, maybe even all of us, are stronger than we think.
So in my reading about Fortitude over the last few days, I'm left with this question. And now I admittedly, as per so many of our episodes, I was thinking about our F word of the week through a lens of a parent of growing kids. I want my kids to have fortitude. I think of it as a good thing. But I also, it seems it's like there are two things that we're trying to teach our kids. One, not my husband and me, but there are two big concepts that feel in some ways a little bit in opposition to one another. One is we want them to be we, the collective we. We want our kids to have fortitude. We want them to be mentally strong. We want them to endure challenges and come out on the other side having faced their challenges. At the same time, we want them to ask for help when they need help. We want them to be vulnerable. We want them to stand in their vulnerability and not endure the things that they don't have to endure. And even though I don't think that those two concepts are necessarily opposed or, mutually exclusive, it sure feels complicated sometimes. Especially, I'll admit it, I'm a little bit codependent sometimes. It's very hard for me, and maybe this is just being a parent, it's very hard for me to watch my kids struggle. And I'm really struggling with figuring out where the line is. How do I not save them, but still make sure that they know that I'll always save them if they need me to? And is that even a good thing? So I don't know.
So I think this is an eternal dilemma of parents. And let me say that as the girls grow up and get older and are adolescents, your role vis-a-vis this kind of thing must, for their benefit, so that they can be resilient, independent humans, must change. And then when they become adults, your role must change again. And here's the thing. As a parent, you want to prevent your children from experiencing pain. So if you see them going down a path of making a series of decisions that you, by virtue of your age and status in life and experience and deep knowledge of them, is the wrong path and is going to cause them that they're going to be digging a deeper and deeper hole for themselves that's just going to take them a longer time to get out of. You still need to shut up and let them make those mistakes. And been one of the hardest things for me as a parent. Also, even if I decide to not say anything, it's written all over my face. I am just the most transparent person to anyone, much less those who know me as well as my kids do. So I don't have to even verbalize my opinion, but it's like oozes out of my pores. And the trick is not, they've taught me, and they're absolutely right. And it's going to be a lifelong struggle, but they've taught me, don't try to influence the outcome.
Yeah.
So that's my little mantra.
I feel it as the adult child of parents with whom I'm very close. And I feel it as a parent of, an almost 4-year-old and a 14-month-old who, in some ways care very much about pleasing me. And in many ways, and with my older daughter, it's just like, I think it's so incredible how little she cares about what other people think. But I just want to protect her from the big scary world sometimes. And
and she's 4, so that's appropriate. It just, it's just kind of getting a handle on what that looks like. I know that one of the most important priorities for me in raising kids was that they become good people, that they be the best that they could be. But at what cost, So does that mean encouraging them to stay up until 11 o'clock at night working on the science project so that it's a little bit better and a little bit better and a little bit better, so it's the very best? Or is it better for them to have the experience of working as hard as they think they should work and getting the grade that they get based on that? I mean, I don't know. And every day is fraught with a million of these kinds of decisions. Where you have them face the natural consequences of their actions and where you kind of swoop in and save them, from the collateral damage. That is what parenthood is all about. But I like the word, and it doesn't begin with an F, but it has a lot to do with fortitude. I like the word resilience because I think that's really what we're trying to create here. Fortitude is a necessary component of resilience. It's one of the things that you need is to, as a human, man, woman, child, whatever, is to find your inner strength and act upon it. But I don't see that at all as mutually exclusive from being vulnerable. In other words, one of the things that I think we all need to do is feel our pain, feel our fears feel our grief when it's about loss, in order to then move forward. If you try to block those feelings, you can't move forward because the feelings are there. You can't deny your feelings and try to act strong when you're not feeling strong. Doesn't work.
Right. Well, one thing that I did see, and I can't remember, I think it was like a Business Insider listicle about ways to raise, have you heard that word, by the way? Listicle?
I was going to interrupt you and say, what in God's name is a listicle?
It's a list article, kind of like what BuzzFeed is founded on. So a Business Insider roundup of experts on different ways to raise mentally strong kids. And one thing that they start with is you should never minimize your kids' feelings. And the reason that leads to mental strength is because when kids learn that all of their feelings are valid, it helps them develop comfort with all of their feelings, because the whole idea of futility or not futility. I don't know why I keep doing that. Freudian
It's a
slip or
different
something.
episode.
Freud, by the way, that'd be a good F word.
I'm game. I'm game.
So in developing fortitude in kids, mental strength in kids, teaching them that all of their feelings are valid is really important. And also because the whole idea, I think, and it just feels like so important and so overwhelming that I'm the person responsible for, not by myself, but for trying to bestow this onto my kids, but teaching them that in their fear, like to get comfortable in their fear, to understand their fear. I listened to this TED Talk by this woman named Anna Kirsch, who is she's a composer, and she told this story about going into the forest as a kid, and she's from Iceland, I think, somewhere in the Netherlands. She's talking about going into the forest, and in the light, it was this fun, beautiful thing. She could see where she was. It was a good time. And then in the dark, in the forest, that's when her imagination came alive and started playing tricks on her, and she became very afraid. And she ended up composing a piece. She let the fear, this one time, and she was in the forest at night, she let the fear guide her creativity. She leaned into those feelings and ended up composing a very beautiful piece of opera about fear in the forest. And it was kind of her way of leaning into it and letting it inform her. And I thought that was so beautiful, because I find it so difficult to live in, to engage with my fears, to see it's like, to open up that dark closet figuratively and see what's in the dusty corners. That's a sort of a thing in my life that I have a hard time with. And I really loved the metaphor, the idea of finding good, useful information in scary experiences that you can then bring into the light. But it sure is difficult in practice.
And that required fortitude on her part, because she had to tell herself, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay to feel afraid. Nothing life-threatening is happening. These are feelings. I mean, I think that's a really important thing for all of us at any age to be able to do, is to differentiate between what are our feelings and what is reality. What is fact and what is feeling. Mm-hmm. So, those of us who suffer from anxiety and our brains spin out of control, we get onto the what if hamster wheel, and if this, then this, and if this, then this, and then when none of those things are known to be true at this moment. Yeah, they're possibilities, but so is nuclear annihilation tomorrow, or a massive earthquake where we, whatever.
Yeah, well,
everything is possible, but we don't need to worry about everything. It won't help.
Well, there are times too, and we're certainly living through them, where there actually is real risk. Every time I drop Anna off at preschool, where she's wearing a mask, she's not great at keeping it on, but she's wearing one. And, all the adults who are taking care of her are vaccinated, and we're in this bubble with these other adults who are, we're all taking care of our kids as best we can. So far, everything's been okay, but still we're in the middle of this pandemic. And it's like, I have to, in order to get through the day and not be overtaken by panic that something bad is going to happen to my kid, I have to suspend my disbelief. And it just makes me think about the parents who all over the world, for lots of different horrific reasons, are having to be brave as they send their kids out into the world, or, keep their kids safe with them, whatever it is.
In a refugee center in Poland, where they have people every 2 inches and they have no idea what tomorrow will bring and if they'll ever be able to go home. And if their husband or brother or father will be dead tomorrow from the bombs. Yeah.
Precisely. I just saw something about how parents are writing their contact information on their children's bodies in case, God forbid, something should happen. And the war during a pandemic, it's like the fact that anyone is moving through these days that we're living in with, and the thing is, we have to have hope. We have to have fortitude, because we want a world that is still intact for our children and grandchildren and their children and grandchildren. And there are times when, boy, it just feels like fortitude is suspending your disbelief to the extent that you can get through another day and take care of,
Well, I was going to say, it's very much, I think it becomes very micro. You cannot look at the macro, because that's way too overwhelming. So when I think of the most challenging moments in my life and how the hell did I get through that? I think of one right now, which is my brother had a massive cerebral hemorrhage and he was going to die, and we took him off life support, and then he didn't die. And for days, and we were all staying, all of us, he had five adult children. We were all there just kind of waiting and trying to manage what was happening. And in my case, as the sole surviving member of my original family, trying to really be an adult in the situation or take over that role. And all you could do is look at what was directly in front of you. And I think that is what's probably happening for the refugees and for the people who are, finding themselves in the middle of a war, is that all you can do is make the decision of what you're going to do at this exact moment. And somewhere in this moment that is filled with fear, that is filled with pain of all kinds, maybe there's also somewhere in there a spark of joy. Maybe in there, there's a moment where you can feel tremendous love for and from your child on a mat on the floor with the smell of too many humans in a room and not enough food to go around. But there's something maybe strikes you as funny in a moment. And so, or you smell a flower or something. And that is where you draw the fortitude.
I mean, that's fortitude coming. You must be vulnerable. It's like, gosh, you have to stay open to all feelings, yet strong in the face of adversity in order to embody both.
The desire and the drive to survive, I think, is a basic human drive. So I think, again, this may not be true in all cases, but in most cases, that will kick in. That will be a very primal, basic desire or urge to survive. And that's where you don't even decide to summon fortitude. It just arrives from somewhere. I think it's certainly been true in my life where I'm like, damn, girl, look at you. And I don't know where it comes from, but it's like, come on, if there was a car that was about to hit your child, you would lift that car right up in the air. That strength would come from God knows where, but it would come.
Well, it's like when you have the privilege of not having fortitude, that's when you might choose not to have fortitude. But when it's do or die, literally or figuratively, then you're going to do because it just comes from within you, without you, somewhere. And that's how you get through.
And then people also give up. People choose not to live.
Yep.
People choose to die by suicide. And that's a very different story. But maybe one could make a case that the pain was so great that it took fortitude to choose to die by suicide in that case.
Yeah. I mean, I always, that's always such a difficult thing when it comes up. I remember that conversation being really, really big when Robin Williams died by suicide. And I really have always thought of it as I've never been suicidal. It's something that I don't understand. And so if that's someone's experience, that they really truly withstood the pain they were in for as long as they possibly could, then, that was their experience. It's such a...
Who are we to judge?
Exactly. Yeah.
So after the research that you did and looking at your own life, what are your takeaways about fortitude, Gabby?
I think, it's a little meta, but I almost wonder if my anxiety about not having fortitude and not being able to teach fortitude to my kids is something that I need to have a little bit of fortitude about. Like I need to, I need to lean into that anxiety and that fear and trust that with every hurdle, I will confront it one step at a time. And, I will do my best to stay open to what the universe is teaching me and what my kids are teaching me and what it is I need to teach them. So I think that's where I'm at.
Stay strong, Gabby. Stay strong.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to All the F Words. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, and we would love it if you would follow us, rate us, review us, positively, of course.
We are also on social media. We are on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube at allthefwordspod. And you can also email us. We'd love to hear from you. We are at allthefwordspod@gmail.com.
Bye-bye.
Bye.